Brody Brazil and Nick Nollenberger literally living on the edge. Yeah, I've been waiting to say that. But this is new technology that I should say has existed for a while, Nick, but we've only now had access to it for a couple days. NHL.com/edge is where you can view everything that we're about to share with you. They've been tracking the players for a couple years now. Do you know where the little sensors are?
Yeah, if you've noticed on the back of the jerseys, it almost looks like a little bit of like a patch sewn into the jersey.
Right above the nameplate there, yeah.
So if you weren't looking for it, you may be curious of what that was, but that's exactly what it was. They've been doing this for a couple of years now, just tracking tons of information that's now public.
Cameras, sensors, so much technology here in 2023. It's like an IT person's dream or nightmare, depending on how things go. But yeah, you could see it right there if you look close. So now you have something to look for on Sharks jerseys and players' jerseys all across the NHL. But they're tracking so many cool things. Forget the technology for just a second. Take away what we're learning from this. Like, for example, here's one we wanted to show with you. Goals this season, San Jose versus Carolina. We can literally see where every goal, Nick, has been scored from. Here's kind of the heat map. Obviously, it includes shots on goal, the amount of goals, the shooting percentage, but this is where the San Jose goals are coming from, and on the other side is where the Carolina goals are coming from.
Yeah, it makes it a little bit more tangible, and as you can see with the Sharks, 170 shots to 278, and the Sharks obviously going through a little bit of a stretch where they're struggling to score goals, but again, it makes it a little bit more visually, I guess, stimulating. Yeah. You know where things are coming from and where teams are having success.
Look at, I hate to step in your shot here, but look at the 18 for them right out front. My goodness, like if I'm a coach or a player, like where to defend, that's obvious, but especially for that team right there. So that's an interesting one where the goals are being scored from. How about the shot location where each team is getting their shots from? And to no surprise, the points are kind of heavy here. Points are heavier for Carolina. We know Brent Burns is on that team. So just in terms of the overall shot volume and where it's coming from, I also think this is an interesting metric here. The left face-off dot area for San Jose just a little bit more than anywhere else.
Yeah, it's interesting too. You just look at it, and again, a team that's trying to find ways to score goals. Look at Carolina, so heavy right in front of the net.
Yeah.
For the Sharks, sometimes simplicity is the best approach. You get in front of a goalie's face, you get a puck that tips off you, a deflection, and you find success. So again, it's really interesting to see it broken down like this and see where a team maybe can make adjustments. And for a coaching staff, as you alluded to, maybe they can use a heat map like this and say, hey, we need to go to these areas, or we need to avoid these areas, we need to get to these areas and work for pucks and work for possession. So it's really cool, fun stuff for us stat nerds.
And this is, honestly, this is detailed, but this is a kind of a simple level approach and view. It gets deeper than this. For example, zone time. And this is also cool because it helps us quantify what we're watching in games. We've been talking about puck possession. The Sharks don't possess the puck. They spend a lot of time. Look at that, 46.7% in their own end. Sure, the neutral zone is kind of nominal. I mean, the Canes are at 18%, Sharks are at 17%, but they don't spend nearly as much time, a whole 10% less, basically, in the offensive zone.
Yeah, certainly. And for the Sharks, again, another thing they're trying to get into their game is puck possession. If you hold on to the puck, you're defending less, you're generating more chances. If they can start holding on to pucks in the offensive zone, they'll have more success. You mentioned the slight differences in the neutral zone. Drew Romero always talks about it. If you win the neutral zone, you often have success in all other areas. So again, this is just a way to break it down, see where the Sharks maybe are lacking or having success.
Do you know what I mean, though? As somebody who's describing a hockey game, you want this stuff to back up what you're saying. And when it does, you're like, oh, I told you so. The numbers don't lie. Oh, I remember Brent Burns. So what do we know about Burnsy, where he's getting his shots from? And this year, one of the league's leaders, I know it's only 2, but shots and actually goals from the mid-range area. We can kind of, we'll show the goal-scoring areas, mid-range. So basically outside the scoring area, but inside the blue line. Kind of between the dots, basically.
Yeah, so you can tell he's drifting down from the point, right? He's using that great shot, his great skating ability. Maybe another defenseman who's more quote-unquote stay at home. You're not going to see the heat map in that area, but for Burnsy, who's offensively minded, that's going to be his area where he wants to rip the puck, drift down a little bit from the point.
Which, again, he's a guy that could be scoring from the point, too. His big, heavy shot, but it has not happened yet. So he is kind of getting his goals, at least from the mid-range perspective, a little bit more in the play. Mackenzie Blackwood, we know how good he's been, and we know how stats don't really reflect that based on the amount of shots that he's faced this year. High danger saves. My goodness, he's up there as one of the league leaders. So you hate to see this, but this is a stat I've been asking for a while, and I guess that's the definition, high danger saves, because I feel like sometimes shots don't necessarily correlate to great chances.
Yeah, we were just talking about this the other night. But you look at this. This is 47 saves right in front of him, just 4 goals. That's the indicator. So Mackenzie Blackwood, obviously, for the Sharks as a whole, they struggled the other night. But he has been outstanding, and the stats back it up.
And if you told me that the shots were coming from a distance or, you know, coming from the points or even bad angles, like I think there's those goal line areas and zones that are just not great scorers, goal scorers areas. You can see that a heavy amount of shots that he's faced are probably also second chances right out front, too.
No question, and he uses his big frame, his lateral mobility. He's an athletic guy, and he's shown it off again in those tight spaces when you're battling for positioning, and as a goalie, you're trying to stand tall. Again, he shows off that that's been one of his best areas, and again, that's kept the Sharks in some of these games.
All right, there's one more to take a look at here. Jan Ruta, defenseman with the max speed in terms of his shot. So we're talking about velocity, almost like baseball, exit velocity off the bat. This is puck velocity off the stick. 70 to 80 miles an hour. He's got 8 of those shots, 80 to 93 times, and he's reached a 100-mile-an-hour plus shot once. I have to imagine that was a one-timer.
Yeah,
it's gotta be.
I would imagine, and that's what us broadcasters call a howitzer. Over 100 miles per hour in a game is pretty impressive. Ruda, obviously a guy that was brought in this offseason in the trade from Pittsburgh. A veteran player who went against his old team just the other night. But impressive to see the max speed as well and just the overall averages.
I just want to point out a couple things that we didn't have time to share with you here. They're tracking how far a skater skates in a game, like total distance, skating speed. There are so many metrics. Like, we literally just scratched the surface of what NHL Edge is bringing to fans. And again, to be clear, they've been tracking this for years now. They just haven't found the way to like regurgitate and share all this information, but now they're doing it. So check it out here on TV or NHL.com/edge.